Ladies and gentlemen, moving right on to our next panel, which is going to be led by our moderator, who is possibly the most celebrated woman in business in the Middle East. I mean, when you look at the list of this woman's recognitions from France, the Légion d'honneur, l'Ordre de Mérite, within her own native Palestine, from the Americans all across the world, she has been recognized for her work in supporting entrepreneurship and business across the Middle East. Please welcome the editor-in-chief of the Middle East Business Review, Ms. Amal Masri. Please come and take the big chair. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please have a seat. We would also like to welcome her to speak today. Artan Salina, Chief Executive Officer of the BPB Bank from Kosovo. He's held that position since 2016, almost 20 years in the banking sector. So, great person to come and speak to us today. Balas Hendrik, known to everybody here who has been here yesterday, of course, the representative of the V4, Consul General to Istanbul from the government of Hungary. What you might not know that we haven't mentioned is that also a former banker and management consultant. So not just a diplomat, bringing some business to the fore. Thank you very much. As well, we would like to welcome Boštjan Skalar, Chief Executive Officer of the World Trade Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, rose to command the global investment promotion agencies after doing so for his native Slovenia. And it's a great one to have our panel. I'll let our moderator know your clock is over here, the countdown clock. You're good to go, a little bit less. We had some sessions run over, so ladies and gentlemen, take it away. Thank you.
I borrowed my husband's watch. Maybe it will work better.
No. Stick to this one. Stick to this one.
We'll see.
Thank
we'll
you.
See. All right. Good evening, everyone. I know it's very hard to host a session after lunch. And, you know, sometimes we're a bit sleepy, but I'm very appreciative of the number of present people today. I will start by just mentioning a few numbers, just to awaken us a little bit, and then I'll come back to our beautiful panelists. Today's session will be, the general topic is to discuss how we can turn CEOs into angel investors. With some figures I have, like according to OECD, you know, the famous organization in Paris, 1.2% of startups were able to reach angel investors. $1.7 trillion gap in financing for micro and small and medium enterprise companies in the world. At the same time, we have 70% of startup fails within the first 5 years. We have 70% of angels' money, let's say, make profit not more than 1% of their money. We have 85% of the angel investors' money profit comes from only 10% of their investments. So let's say after thinking of these figures, I think some of the angel investors lack for experience, and that's why 85% comes only from 10% of the investments. And that means that they have to invest for more than 30 investments, which is a huge number. That's what I've been told by an expert this morning. So, with our very distinguished panelists today, let's discuss these issues and see if we can bring CEOs to the table and turn them into angels. I don't think putting wings for these CEOs will be enough. I think we will need a little bit more tools for them, and we will hear this from our distinguished guest, Mr. Artan Salina, CEO of BPB Bank in Kosovo, Mr. Balázs. I like pronouncing your name. I trained myself to say it. It's your first name. Thank you. Consul General of Hungary in Istanbul. I think you have seen him in many sessions, and we enjoyed it really. Mr. Skalar, and you correct me for your first name. Boštjan. Mr. Boštjan Skalar, who is the CEO of World Trade Association's Investment Promotion Agencies in Slovenia, which is a big organization that has branches all over the world, I guess, in many countries.
Members all over the world.
All over the world. Let me begin not with our host at my left directly, just not to do the expected role as in all sessions. Let me begin with Mr. Skalar. So I would like to ask you, with your background in economy, and now you're heading this umbrella of big promotion agency, as well with your previous diplomatic experience, merging all of this, do you think that we can turn CEOs into angel investors, and whether it's a good idea, and how can we make them really active? And is it really risky? Because we have seen the business people losing money here and maybe winning big money there. How can we advise them to invest at the beginning with less money but more risk, or maybe at later stage when scaling up the business, putting less money with more money with less risk? The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Mr. Scalar.
I would say like this: the CEOs normally are more institutionalized, so they are working more in an organized, let's say, environment, business environment. So they have they are running the company, which is larger scale, so they are used to have assistance for this and that. They have different departments, but we all know that startups, scale-ups are sometimes one-man band, two-man band,
Yes.
whatever you name it. So I guess if we want to turn CEOs into the angel investors, it's possible, but they would rather invest into the scale-ups already, not into startups, to risk less. Maybe they would invest more, but they would risk less. And they would definitely do this after their professional career, which I guess is the idea of our host, to make it later. So when you are having a bit more time, you are not that much busy with your own businesses. So maybe you can focus on these kind of things. Of course, a lot of enormous experiences that the CEOs are bringing with them will definitely help, especially the really small ones, let's say startups, to grow and to institutionalize their companies or organizations.
So you think that it's better when they retire at the age of 60, they start, not all of them retire at the age of 60, right? But
I mean, they might retire earlier if it's possible.
with a lot of money. How much do you think they should have reserve aside? Maybe just a rough number, you think?
I mean, I don't think the investment value is important, but I guess in the beginning, when they would start to do this job, they would not invest enormous money into this. They will try, they will see the steps, and then they will decide either they will proceed further on in the future or not.
All right, let's say, your point is you encourage them after they finish their businesses, after they decide to slow down. What do you think, Mr. Balazs? Is this a good idea to encourage CEOs to become angel investors with this huge gap of financing for small and medium enterprises in general? How do you see that with your experience coming from the private sector this time into diplomatic arena? A little bit the opposite of our friend here.
Not necessarily the opposite. Actually, running a diplomatic mission is quite close to running a consulting firm.
Can you please
What actually, so I'm sorry, so I repeat it. So running a diplomatic mission is quite similar to run a consulting firm, what I've done for more than 15 years. And being a CEO, there is, of course, it's a great opportunity to oversee a lot of small and big-scale corporates growing up or failing even. And the answer for the question is that I think CEOs has an enormous potential to give back some of their experience and knowledge toward the startups for these young entrepreneurs, or not as young, but really starting somewhere and working on an idea. I think that CEOs can really share their experience, really can measure the risk what is maybe not seen on the startup level. Most of the startuppers I met, there are quite a big number of them, they of course they fall in love with their ideas. So, and which is of course on one side it's a good thing, and on the other hand it's always creates some additional risk around such an endeavor. So CEOs can be a kind of mentor around those things and can evaluate the real value of such an idea. So being a CEO, it's a nice thing, but I think it's even nicer when you reach a certain point that you have certain knowledge which you are intend to share, intend to be part of it. But of course, sharing knowledge is more like consulting, so it's not taking any risk, because of course you give an advice, and whether the advice is taken or not, it depends on the receiver, in this case the startupper. And I think that it's also, let's say, another development stage when these advisors, so mature CEOs, are also, let's say, risking their own money. So, and that's the big thing. So when they do consider to, let's say, step backwards, not working on huge organizations with budgetary, whatever, controlling departments, but really, let's say, get to the ground and really, let's say, try and understand a small-scale business, as Boštjan said, 1-2 people, let's say, get together for performing an idea. So, and I think that's really, let's say, keep the CEOs also fresh and accurate. They also, let's say, develop their knowledge, which means that they will also understand, let's say, the whole vertical of the business is better. So I think that this is really the way CEOs should go.
That seemed very interesting. So you are talking about specific kind of skills that we will talk about later on. And later on you can tell us about your own business with the venture capital that you have been in, and you withdraw, and then you tell us about this story. Now, you mentioned as well the budget issue. Now we move to the money. So now we have Mr. Money, we have the CEO of PB Bank, and it's not a recent bank, it's an old bank. So you must have Mr. Arton lend a lot of money all over the years. We have mentioned so many figures at the beginning saying that there's huge gap in financing for small and medium enterprise and micro even companies. And you have a lot of money in your pockets. How do you see the role of banks in this specific issue? This is my first question. And the second question, how can you help CEOs if you encourage them to become angel investor? I don't want you to create competitors to your bank, because sometimes with microfinance lending companies and angel investors, sometimes we compete with bank a little bit. But maybe we can create a bridge if you have an idea to tell us about Mr. Chelina, please.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for having me here. I fully agree with what Mr. Boštjan and Mr. Henry said about their own topics till now. Naturally, yes, a CEO can become an angel investor, and it would be pity not to become an angel investor, considering the whole set of knowledge and experiences the CEO has during its period of being a CEO. My remark would be that if the CEO would be an angel investor or not at the retirement age, I look at it on a very skeptical eye, because the more you get old, the more risk averse you become. And the more you get old, the more investments you conduct, and you see a lot of obstacles within all those investments. But this is not a straight line between whether to become an angel investor or not. I personally think that CEOs should be encouraged to become an angel investment. However, it has a very, very parallel lines with the environment where the CEO or an angel investment operates. In the region or country where I come from, the angel investment as a concept is at a very intensive stage, and it requires a lot of contribution from many other stakeholders to make it happen. Government should play a role to regulate it in a way, although I'm skeptical the moment the government gets in and regulates it, whether it is positive or negative effect. But there is a role for universities to play for encouraging new ideas and insert the entrepreneurship component into the educational system. There is a role for the angel investment networks to become more active and promote this angel investment facility, so that maybe create co-investment opportunities for the angels, as well as the last but not least, previous discussion was more in terms of exit strategy. The angels would more or less like to see whether their exit strategy, and if there is no equity markets or kind of equity markets where they could sell, or maybe angel investment networks where they could sell to another angel investor, etc., that would be maybe another hurdle of whether getting in or just staying where they are.
But in point of view of banks, where banks can intervene and help CEOs become angel investors?
Well,
Bank guarantees, I don't know, just...
From my point of view, and I don't think that any bank has done something in the angel investment concept, unless there are a few initiatives trying to organize angel investments around the bank, where they can cooperate and create a bankable project for the future, but bank itself would be very difficult to play a role in the angel investment concept.
Maybe that needs to be developed, how banks can help create a better ecosystem. Maybe Mr. Scalar can help us elaborate on this. Creating an ecosystem for CEOs to become angel investors, because it's obviously that we lack for the experience of CEOs into the market of, let's say, funding for these startups.
Let me say like this, that to my opinion, the angel investors ecosystem is not even created yet. It's a very in a beginning stage. This is how I see, and the banks, even to, I would say, to some SMEs which are not very small ones, are not really trusting, because that kind of companies are not providing a really business plan, what the bank will count on actually to invest the money. Okay, the CEO would have his own earnings most possibly, so I don't believe the bank would simply, I mean, they can give a personal credit to a CEO if he would bring, and I'm sure the CEO is able to provide a solid business plan. What I would like also to elaborate a bit from our point of view. We have, for example, investment promotion agencies. Yes. They are at the really early stage that they started to discuss that the SMEs, the startups, the scale-ups are an important part of the value chain. And mostly they would like to attract, of course, investments which goes to 100 millions, you know, and it's, of course, they focus on this kind of, but nevertheless, these scale-up startups are part of the ecosystem, an integral part, and they are providing this linkage to the local markets. And this is how they can be part of the bigger picture. And the banks, through this, would then investing into this. I mean, now we can't simply speak about CEOs investing, but in general, I guess the small and medium-sized companies need to make a lot in the capacity building to be able to provide proper business plans to attract the financing.
So with the promotion agencies around, with the, as you mentioned, members, do you give incentives? Was these agencies' role is to bring in investment in each country?
Depends on the country, of course. We have members from 130 countries all around the world. And they are all very different. So some of them are giving incentives also to the SMEs or startup scale-ups, but not many, to be honest. This is still the really beginning stage. It's not developed yet.
So I think it's like a Virgin Island, let's say.
Most possibly,
the angel investments and CEOs. I think
but it's the future, definitely.
Yes, for the future. Maybe it's a recommendation for this Congress to establish more conversation on this issue. Go back to the experience issue, Mr. Balázs. Tell us about how your experience and your previous business with venture capital, because venture capital is completely different, not completely, but partially different from angel investments. So tell us about your experience, and I think the clock is ticking.
Yes, let me answer the question. I mean, timing was backwards. So now, as you know, I'm from in the public sector, but I think it's also very important what the public sector can do towards SMEs, and we tackle this question in the answers of my colleagues here. government has certain roles to encourage SMEs, start-uppers, young entrepreneurs to really enter this risky endeavor. And I think that my role, and coming from consulting and lending for the time being in the public sector, can create a kind of bridge in between. So because I do know that how a corporate people thinking and how do they plan their businesses. And on the other side, I also, let's say, dealing with policy making, which can really, let's say, create a framework, let's say, supporting them. And in between, there are certain areas where we have to, let's say, fulfill the gap and fulfill with the seniority, with the knowledge, with the mentorship, which basically angel investors can deliver. So if there is a policy making prepared in the right way, even, let's say, taking certain risks from the shoulders of the potential investors, really targeting certain periods where maybe the losses or the potential losses even higher, then I think that this really can create a working ecosystem.
Thank you very much. It's always very beneficial to talk about government policies, but it's not always implemented everywhere. Mr. Arton, do you share this point of view that we need more government policies?
Well, government is all the time welcome to play its role, its positive, constructive role towards supporting new generations and new ideas. However, too much regulation for this angel investments at early stage investments, I'm not sure whether it would be beneficial at this point of time. Yeah. But in a way, people will look for security, people will look for some regulations, and it would add value if it's positively constructed and supportively implemented. I think it would add value to all this ecosystem.
Absolutely. I would just need help in the timing. How many minutes we have left? 1 minute. Wow, that's a lot. We need to. Oh, thank you. I think we have now several points raised from our distinguished panelists, including talking about the need of experience, the need of, why we need CEO as angel investors. It's measurements because they are used to that, the system in their companies they used to adopt, their experience in mentorship for these startups. But we mentioned as well the need of government policies in order to support this. Can we have comments, questions from you? Because I see that you must be a bit tired, but all questions are welcome. Drania, yes, please. Introduce yourself and someone is running.
My name is Rania Ghoshi. I'm a lawyer, and I worked a lot in managing relations between CEO, investors, and the entrepreneurs. And I realized that in many forums we talk about how to put incentives for CEOs to become angel investors, and how to direct entrepreneurs to start relationship and initiating relationships with CEOs. However, there's a point that has to be taken a bit further during these forums and these conferences, that is how to manage the relations post the investment. Because usually it's very beautiful at the beginning, but then at a certain stage, at a very early stage, you start to have certain deadlocks, where the investor CEO, he wants to play a bit of a wider role because he feels that he has more experience, and where the entrepreneur himself, he has a sort of crisis of trust. Where is the CEO taking me? So probably in other forums we could take this a little bit further.
So you're thinking about conflict, potential conflict.
Potential conflicts and managing the relations post-investment.
Post-investment. Thank you very much, Rania. Any other comment? We have one last. No one? All right. Let's just wrap up in 1 minute. Each of you, please, recommendation for CEOs who wants to be transformed into angels. Maybe first we have to buy some wings for them, but what is the next advice? Let's begin by Mr. Skalar.
I would again say that they should go for the scale-ups. So the ones that are already a bit more closer to their mindset, and then they will give a trial, and then they will see later on what they will do. I mean, it's a hard topic to say in a very short manner, but I guess with their experiences, they can manage this.
They can manage it. And do you, the other, very fast, do you recommend that they invest in startups with little money? You talked about it briefly in your first intervention.
The other one, to scale up a little bit more.
You chose the scale up with more risk. That's your advice. Mr. Balazs, so.
I make it quick. I see Andrew pushing hard. So
I can see you, Andrew.
I agree with Boštjan. So let's go step by step. Start with the scale-ups and learn around it. Boost your adrenaline, and then so feel excited about it. And of course, learning by doing is very important. Let's say investing into such small-scale businesses.
Thank you very much, Mr. Artem, the banker.
Yes.
You're a CEO, so you will be an angel investor.
Yes,
Are you convinced after this session?
I'm convinced, and I would encourage everybody to do so. The only line I would draw between startup or scale-up is that within our years of experience, we have a lot of expertise and different scenarios are drawn in our heads. So I wouldn't say neither one or the other, but just listen to your intuition, whatever your heart and mind combined says, and do it. So just do it.
So just do it. This is Artem's advice, and as well with Mr. Balazs, who was saying go for it with scale up, combined with the same advice for our friend, Mr. Skala, saying yes, scale up with more money, less risk. This is really the three words with which we will finish this session. Thank you very much. Let's upload our very interesting session and panelists, and hope that this will be